Welcome to Apologetics for the Rest of Us podcast with Dr. Ray Ciervo. This podcast seeks to simplify the complex challenges to our faith for the everyday follower of Jesus Christ. You'll discover how to give answers to everyone who asks you about the hope within your heart, as Dr. Ray explains not only what we believe, but why we believe what we do. And now here's your host, Dr. Ray Ciervo.
Hey, this is Ray Ciervo, and this is Apologetics for the Rest of Us. My ministry's name is No Pat Answers, and this is one of our YouTube and iTunes podcast. So today we're going to deal with a man called Jeff Levine. It's an on-the-spot that Claudia Kaja has done, and I'm going to say that Jeff is an unbeliever. He does not believe in God. You'll hear his own words saying that he believes that God is the greatest myth that mankind has ever created. And I think that's one we'll have to address. So before we go further into this, here's Jeff.
Hey, this is Claudia. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, and welcome back to On the Spot. Today I have the pleasure of interviewing Jeff Levine.
Thank you. It's nice to be interviewed.
I'm so happy you agreed. And we have your permission to use this on YouTube?
You do, but if you make $1 million, make sure you give me half of it.
You got it.
Okay, good.
Okay, so I would like to put you on the spot with a few questions.
Go ahead.
When you think of God, what do you think of?
What do I think of when I think of God?
Yes.
I think of the biggest myth that was ever created by man.
Okay, so Jeff has made that statement that God is the greatest myth that man has ever created. Now, Jeff is a very affable person, as you can see from the interview. He's a gentleman, and he's gone through some things in his life, I'm sure, as we all have. But to say that God is a myth, I think please forgive me, Jeff, if I'm putting words in your mouth. I don't think you mean myth. I think you mean that you believe God is a lie, in that it's untrue. A myth is something that's based in reality, has some factual content to it somewhere. Maybe you think that maybe you're using the word correctly and I'm misinterpreting it. I'll give you that. But my question to you would be, what do you mean by myth? And if you could explain that to me and those of you who are listening. And I'm trying to help people understand how to approach the subject of defending your faith. So that's why I would ask Jeff the question, what do you mean by myth? He could ask me, what do you mean by God? Which would be the right thing to do. He should have perhaps asked Claudia that question first. But I would say, what do you mean by myth? I think what you mean is that you believe that the idea of God is a lie and something created by mankind. Or maybe you think it's a myth. Some Stone Age man came up with this idea to explain why it rains or lightning or thunder or whatever happened there. But that's what I would ask you is, what do you mean by myth? And then how did you come to that conclusion? I know why Jeff did come to that conclusion, and I'm not going to exploit his own story to say that. I think it was something very traumatic in his life, and I'd be very happy to talk to Jeff about this personally, but I don't think it's something I want to put out on the air, if I could say that, or on the internet. Out of respect for you, Jeff, if I'm wrong, please tell me. But I'll just say that he has a good reason to get to that place. Not that I think it's the right choice, but I think he had substantial reason to get to that place. Yeah, so that's my first response to Jeff. Let's listen to what he thinks about Christianity and Jesus.
Second part of the On the Spot. What would be some objections that you have to Christianity? Or what do you find problematic with Christianity?
Well, I won't zero out Christianity, but I would say that Christianity, like a lot of religions, the first thing, to me the most important thing is life. So the fact that there have been wars that have actually killed people in the name of Christianity, to me, that's the worst offense. The second offense after that would probably be abuse in the church.
When you say the church, you mean?
With priests that have done the wrong thing.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that would be
Okay.
number 2. And probably number 3 would just be that they don't pay taxes and have a free ride.
It's a nonprofit.
Yeah, nonprofit.
Okay.
And, yeah.
Good. Great answer. All right. So the other question I'd like to ask you,
Yeah.
when you think of Jesus, or what do you think of Jesus?
I think he was probably a cool dude. But again, I don't know much about it, but from what I think I know, that the whole myth of him happened several years, like 50 years after he was already dead. But again, I think he was probably a cool guy. And I believe that he was a good guy. I don't think he had anything to do with any superpower other than just being a guy that liked to help people and kind of did his own path and did the right thing.
So Jeff doesn't think that Christianity has to own all the problems, but he does talk about wars and life caused by religious wars. There's killing that goes on in the name of Jesus or Islam or Buddhism or any of the other religions. They're militant Hindus. But I would say that it's not a well thought out or well researched response. There is a tome, 3 volumes of the Encyclopedia of Wars, written by Charles Phillips and I believe it's Alex Axelrod. 3-volume set, Encyclopedia of War. And they account that only 7% of all wars have been started because of religion and are responsible for the deaths and those things. Only 7%. So 93% of wars are started for other reasons. And I would say that in the 20th century, more people were killed than in all of history combined, recorded history, and the majority of them were done by secular dictators, starting with Adolf Hitler, Joseph Stalin, Mao Zedong, Pol Pot. They were all of either fascist or communist persuasions, and certainly communism is an anti-God religion, if I could say that, or political party, as well as the fascism that was practiced in World War II. Fascism in general, I don't think ascribes to God, or it may ascribe to supernatural things, but that would be my response there.
If you're enjoying Apologetics for the Rest of Us, we invite you to help support us. You can donate by going to www.nopatanswers.com and click on the Support Us button. You can also send a check to RCM P.O. Box 507, Ocean, New Jersey, 07755. We are grateful you are listening to the podcast and pray it helps you strengthen your faith and witness.
Okay, to say that, and I'm glad that Jeff brings up the thing about priests and some of the abuses there. I'm in total agreement with that. I'm kind of on the fence with the idea that churches get a free ride, in that we don't pay taxes for those who donate to us. We are a nonprofit organization, and so I'm not sure that that's a good enough reason. To say that Jesus was a cool dude is a compliment, I guess. And to say that the myth about him being a Superman came some 50 years after his death, or in my case, resurrection, is somewhat true. I think one of the Gospels could be that far down the road, be the Gospel of John. He was the oldest living apostle and perhaps wrote his Gospel somewhere between 85 and 95 A.D. That would put him 50 years later. Some people put his gospel earlier, in the 50s or 60s. I would implore people like Jeff, go and do some homework. I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but there's a lot of factual evidence for eyewitness accounts and for testimony concerning those accounts, written by scholars of all persuasions, believers, unbelievers, skeptics, You can look at that in the work of Dr. Gary Habermas. I did a podcast. It was probably my most watched podcast or listened to podcast up until we had Nicole Nelson on with Curse with Common Sense. She kind of blew the doors off everything as far as my podcast was concerned. But Gary Habermas does excellent work, and he has what he calls the minimal facts. And you can find that podcast on YouTube right here, or you can see it on iTunes. I don't know the particular number, but I do deal with the minimal facts for the resurrection and how to present those facts. So Jeff, thank you so much for being interviewed and giving Claudia your opinion on things. I would invite you anytime to come and call me or email me about any of the things that I'm saying. Again, I thank you for being willing to share your heart and tell us a little bit about your story. But my reason for not putting your reasons for disbelieving in God or why you came to that place is really just I don't think that it's right for me to do so. Even though you did give us permission, things happen in life, and what happened to you was a traumatic situation. So I understand that completely. And again, if you want to talk to me about it personally, I'd be more than happy to do so. The problem of evil is a real issue, and I will deal with that both from a philosophical perspective or persuasion, as well as the emotional side of going through a dark time and walking through suffering because of evil. That'll come up in one of our future podcasts. So for right now, I'm going to sign off. This is Ray Ciervo. Before I sign off, let me just mention again, we have closed the registration for our annual conference in April on the 25th. We haven't canceled the conference, we just closed it for right now. Okay. Thanks so much for listening, watching. We're on YouTube. We're also No-Pat Answers on Instagram. You can see our daily or almost daily posts there, as well as on iTunes, and Buzzsprout is the platform that I use to do our podcasts. So again, this is Ray Ciervo for Apologetics for the Rest of Us. I hope you've enjoyed this. We'll talk to you soon.
You've been listening to Apologetics for the Rest of Us with Dr. Ray Ciervo. We hope you've enjoyed this episode and subscribe to our podcast. Also, please visit our website at www.nopatanswers.com, where you'll find more information about conferences and seminars. If you have questions for Dr. Ciervo, you can email him at info@nopatanswers.com. Have a great day, and God bless.